so that we can compare and determine whether there was a significant change in the Facebook page's activity that is caused by the lockdown. So ayan. So going naman for our to our objectives. So our first main objective is to determine the engagement within Facebook page in terms of weekly average of followers activity. So for the followers activity, this includes emoji reactions. Our specific tasks would be tallying the likes, the hearts, the care, the wow, the angry, and the laugh of the post that will be also tallied weekly. And another one would be the shares. We would also be tallying the shares per post and would be tallied weekly. And again, the comments. Ayan. So for our next main objective, ayan. So for our next main objective, we would be determining the engagement within the Facebook page of Team KB New Generation in terms of the weekly average of administration activity. The administration activity includes the post of the Team KB New Generation, and these posts includes video posts, screenshots of legitimacy posts, and miscellaneous posts. And for our next objective, we would compare and analyze the engagements before and during the lockdown in Tanza, Cavite.
For the methods and indicators, it is as follows. First, we have to gather the necessary data, which is inclined to our objectives. Next would be tallying them and making sure that all numbers are corresponding and the tallying was in fact accurate. And then there will be analysis involved, which includes the application of statistical treatment, which is the mean, median, and the correlation value. And then there would be an interpretation based on those descriptive statistics approach, wherein we will only be focusing on what is the data presented and no furthermore explanation as to why or what can be the conclusions or inferences involved in them. And then of course, which is happening as of right now and as of this moment, which is the presenting. And before we proceed to the next slides, we would like to inform everyone that the group decided to not include one of the posts in the Facebook page if you are to look up the Facebook page named Team KB New Generation, because it had a significant amount of variables in there. If you were to see, it is one of the pinned posts. So the data would be greatly affected by that if it were to be included for this case study. In the next slide, you will see that. You will see that there is now the start of the actual presentation of the data. So first off, this would be the graph representing the tallying from the data before the lockdown in Tanza, Cavite. As you can see, the green line, which is the shares, and the yellow line, which is the posts, are almost flat because of the little data compared to the comments and emoji reactions. The emoji reactions are greatly seen and separated from them because it is the dominant variable before the lockdown in that Facebook page. And then you can also see the peak in week 3 of the comments and emoji reactions. For better interpretation, it would be in the next slide. So that would be the tallying of the data per week. So the middle value of the emoji reactions, shares, comments, and posts are the following: 146,046, 5,930, 17,198, and then 60, respectively. So that would be the indicator if the total average is in the upper value or the lower value. So as observed, we have the dominant variable, which is the emoji reactions, which is 214,228, including in the upper value. And then for the share, 7,905, also included in the upper value. And then comments, 26,080, also included in the upper value. And then 62 lastly for the post, which is again included in the upper value. In the next slide. you will see the breakdown or the division of the posts also before the lockdown. So we provided the pie chart and the table of the tallying so that we can visualize it better. So it was almost a tie between the miscellaneous and the legitimacy posts, but the legitimacy posts were greater by 1%. Legitimacy posts are those that are the screenshots or the testimonies of Nick Banayo's clients as to what the services did to their lives, and it increases the popularity and the legitimacy of Nick Banayo himself and the Facebook page. Miscellaneous posts are those that are random pictures and posts like pictures of the clients, updates about the schedule, and so much more. And of course, the video posts are extensions of other social media platforms of Nick Banayo, like his YouTube channel, and other actual presentation or documentary of the healing process or his services to his clients. And then we also included the division for the emoji reactions before the lockdown. As you can see, the like reaction is the most dominant, which is 68.8% or 147,536, followed by the heart, which is 46,624 or 21.8%. And of course, the last two, which is not that clearly seen in the pie chart because of its small amount, is the angry reaction, which is 538, and the sad reaction, which is 555. We also included sample comments in the timeline before the lockdown in Tansa, Cavite. As you can see, there are those that are confessing about the contributions of the healing water to their lives, particularly those who are diagnosed with the COVID-19 or recently, and then those that are inquiring about the services and how they can avail those services from them. And as you can see from the middle and the right post, there are replies from the author or the administration, but it is mostly scripted. This is because there is a significant amount of comments per post, even up to this day. So there is an actual script for them to reply for those clients. And of course, the last statistical treatment, which is the correlation statistical treatment. So before the lockdown, you can see that there are variables that are positively related to each other, and there are only two pairs that are not related to, are negatively correlated or reversely proportional when it comes to their relationship. The shares and posts and the comments and posts have a negative correlation, which means as one increases, the other one decreases. So this may not be a direct relationship, however, that is the observed variable before the lockdown. Other pairs like the shares and comments, emoji reactions to all the other variables are positively correlated, which means as one increases, the other increases. Now let us proceed to the data during the lockdown. As we can see, there is the rise and fall of the emoji reactions. So as the group hypothesized, this would have happened because there was limited access to the services, and that there was other priorities for the clients aside from the Facebook page. And then, but compared to the graph before the lockdown, the comments is now almost flat, which is also the same for the shares and posts. So that we can see it clearly, let us proceed to the next slide. There, we can see the significant decrease of all of the average data and even the middle value. The middle value of emoji reactions is 62,942. For the shares is 1,834. For the comments is 4,762. And for the posts is 11. For the average, 80,608 for the emoji reactions, still included in the upper value. Shares is 2,983, included in the upper value. Comments, 6,625, also included in the upper value. And lastly, for the posts is 24, which is also included in the upper value. We also have a same approach here for dividing the posts during the lockdown. However, in here, we can see that since the posts are somewhat decreased, there was an increase in legitimacy posts, which is 54.4%, or 13 posts per week. And then the miscellaneous would be 26% of all of the posts, which is 6. And then lastly is video posts, which is 19.5%, or counting it would be 5 video posts per week during the lockdown. Same approach also for the emoji reactions division. This time there was an increase in the like reactions, or the percentage, or rather, which is 71.7%. But if look closely, it would be corresponding to 57,822 like reactions per week during the lockdown. It is also followed by the heart, 19.6%, or 15,815 reactions per week. And then it would be also the same for the angry and sad, which is the last two. But now the angry and care are almost the same count, which is 241 and 285 respectively. Again, we also included sample comments from the timeline of during the lockdown in Tanza, Cavite. And again, there are comments here that included the inquiry about about the payment purposes, and also how to avail for the online services, which is apparent because there was strict lockdown in Tanza, Cavite at the time. And also including the correlation statistical treatment here in the data of the during the lockdown. To be honest, the group was quite shocked with the data and the tallying, because now during the lockdown in Tanza, Cavite, all variables observed in the Team KB New Generation FB page are positively correlated to each other, and even almost achieving a perfect score of correlation, which means as one increases, the other increases. So the highest correlation variable here would be the emoji reactions to the comments. So now let us compare the average data of both timelines. As we can see here, the data from before the lockdown of Tanza, Cavite was greater than the data of during the lockdown in Tanza, Cavite for the FB page. We can see that the highest would be the emoji reactions, and then followed by, of course, the posts because there are limited only, and then shares, and then comments. Furthermore, this table would present clearly about the exact amount of the average data for each timeline. As we can see, the data from the emoji reactions count from before the lockdown is almost 3 times compared to during the lockdown. And then the shares would also be almost 3 times greater compared to during the lockdown. The comments is almost 4 times greater during the lockdown. And then the posts before the lockdown were almost 3 times greater during the lockdown. And then also the previous slide, we can also further conclude that for each post, yes, Felix, next slide. Previous slide, sorry. Ayan. For each post before the lockdown, there were almost 3,000 emoji reactions per post, and then 150, almost 150 counts of shares, and then 470 counts for the comments. And then even just by looking at the data, there would be a less count for each post during the lockdown. So it is mostly affected by the amount of posts per week before and during the lockdown. And thank you. As mentioned, there will be sample comments of the various types combined from the before and during lockdown timeline. So for the admin replies, as I have stated in the last time, we have a scripted replies from the administration and Nick Banayo's team about how to avail the services and what are the other details like the address and about your companions and other links for that. And then also there are times where Nick Banayo himself have replied to comments about how the his services positively affected their lives. Ayan, additional admin replies from Nick Banayo and his team. And then inquiry about where his office's address and the directions about that and the maintenance processes after the service has been availed or applied. Of course, there will also be negative comments here about bashing and about how the service is bad, um, how slow the process is. But there are actually also comments that are more bashful than this, more straightforward than this, like how Nick Banayo is not legit, is not an actual healer. And then of course there are positive comments about how the services were useful to them and even recommending other clients to join in. And then of course there are also witty comments about the recommendations and the somewhat straightforward statements. So for the conclusions, it is clearly seen that the Facebook engagement variables of Team KB New Generation Facebook page were greater before the lockdown in Tanza, Cavite. And then before the lockdown, posts paired with shares and comments have negative correlation, which means as one increases, the other decreases. However, during the lockdown, all variables of the FB page have a positive correlation, which means as one increases, all of the other variables increases. Legitimacy posts dominated before and during the lockdown. And then the likes, heart, and wow reactions dominated before and during the lockdown. And as the group observed, despite the lockdown in Tanza Cavite, Team KB New Generation FB page still obtained significant engagement and recognition from its followers. That would be all, and thank you for listening.
Okay. Sabi nga ni Bianca, crazy. Binasa niyo ba yung mga post ko? Nakakaloka. Anyway, may mga tanong ako and comments. Okay. So, congrats mo. Nice presentation. Galing. Effort. Tawag dito, paki-share ulit yung sinishare niyo. Sige. Okay, go. Sige, next slide. Yung sa graph ng yung may post, emoji likes. Sa graph niya. Yan. Okay, wrong graph yun. Okay, guys. Okay na yun, tama, balik-balik. Sa 10th slide ata. Sa graph, 10th ata, 10 or 11. Ayan, 11. Okay. Okay, guys, pag gagawa kayo ng graph, pag may mataas na data tulad ng emoji reactions, ihiwalay nyo siya. Okay, guys. Itong apat na to, dapat hiwalay na lang dapat. Okay, ito ay average ng week 1. Tama ba? Sinong magsasalita sa inyo?
Ano
Yes,
po yun,
sir.
sir?
Ayan, average yan, no? Average value for week 1. Ayan siya.
Yes po.
Okay. So, pag gagawa kayo ng graph, tapos i-average nyo lang. Bale, ilang points to? 7 data points lang to, tama ba? 7 data points to, no? For each week, isang data point lang.
Yes po.
Tama? Kasi average sila, di ba? Okay. Pag ganito yung graph, dapat, bar graph siya dapat. Kasi, kinukuha mo lang yung isang value ng isang week. Okay? No need to connect them. Kasi kung i-connect mo pala, dapat i-graph mo na lang yung yung actual data kasi meron ka namang continuous data from 1 to 7, 8 to 14, 15 to 21, and so on and so forth. Okay, so next time, pag gagawa kayo, lalo sa buhay nyo sa farm, i-graph kayo. Okay, kasi pag isang graph lang na ganito, hindi ko na makita yung properties nung sa posts. Okay, mukha na lang siyang linya. Maganda sana kung meron siya sariling graph, no? Para makita naman namin kung paano siya nag-vary over time. Okay, next would be dun sa pie graph nung yung mga legitimacy something video post. Ano yung ano ulit yung legitimacy post?
Yun po sir yung yung anything po na related ng screenshots or testimonies po ng clients about yung legitimacy po ng service or Nick Manayo himself po.
Yung video post. So yung legitimacy post ay galing sa tawag dito, sa mga consumer niya o galing sa admin din pero binigay sa kanila ng consumer?
Ano po, yung iba po ay private messages po, tas yung iba po yung actual testimonies po yung from the page po itself. Tas yung iba naman po na messaging ay screenshot po ng admin. Tas as far as po, hinihingi din po yung consent po nila regarding posting it for the purpose po.
Okay, so yung binilang lang dito sa legitimacy post ay yung post ng admin na galing ng post ng admin na binigay sa kanila ng consumer. So hindi nyo binilang yung consumer itself yung nag-post or nag-comment?
Ay, hindi po. Hindi po namin kinuha po.
Okay, so yung video post, ayan ba ay independent sa legitimacy post? Walang
Yes,
video post
right,
na
sir.
legitimacy rin?
Hindi po, more on po siya yung documentation po or parang pasilip po kung ano po yung ganap doon sa office niya po sa Tansa Cavite.
Okay, paano kung
Kasi sorry
Okay,
po.
sige go.
Sige po sir.
Paano kung may legitimacy, meron bang legitimacy post na video din?
Ako po yung nag-handle po niyan. Pero either kinount ko na lang po siya as either legitimacy or video post po. Pero mas marami po yung video post na more on documentation lang po.
Okay, sige.
Small counts lang po.
Okay. Next is yung correlation ng data, yung may mga 0.9, ganun something. Okay. So, ang ibig sabihin ba nito, for every 100 shares, merong 66 comments? Tama ba?
Ano po yun, sir?
Anong ibig sabihin nito? Kuwari, ibig sabihin ba nito pag meron akong, kung titingnan natin yung shares at comments, no, 0.66, di ba? Ano ibig sabihin nito intuitively? Kapag ba may 100 shares, merong 66 comments, ganun ba ibig sabihin yan?
Not necessarily po, sir. Bali po kasi siya, range po siya from 0 to positive 1. Pag nasa 0 to positive 1 po siya, yun po yung may positive relationship po. Yung increasing. Pero kapag nasa 0, negative 1 naman po siya, yun po yung pabaliktad naman po, increasing, decreasing. Yung mga 0.66, 0.35, parang more on po siya yung parang weak na positive tsaka strong na positive.
Yes, I know that. Pero how does that, anong intuitive, niyan? Intuitive, tawag dito? intuitive explanation dito. Kasi looking at this number, we don't know what's 0.66 and 0.36 are. Anong ano nito? Anong explanation niya? Kung 0, ano mangyayari?
Zero po sir is ano po, no relationship po. Parang
Paano,
hindi, ay sorry po.
paano ma-define yung relationship? Anong relationship?
Yung ano po sir, yung parang sabay po silang, ano po, kapag nag-i-increase po yung isa, mag-i-increase din po yung, pag may mataas na count po ng shares, may mataas din po na count ng comments. Ganoon po.
So, ang ibig sabihin... Okay, sige.
Ay, okay po. Not necessarily po yung mismong amount na 66 per 100 po.
Ang ibig sabihin ba nito ay growth niya kung gaano siya kabilis rumami? Kung within 1 week naka 100 shares ako,
Sir,
dapat
hindi na
yung
po namin more on yung sa interpretation na lang din po yung sa point, yung ano po, yung ang tawag dito. Yung coefficient po yung tinignan po namin, not necessarily po yung ano po, yung magiging count po ng per variable po. Sa relationship din po ng other variables.
Okay, sige. Paano to kinalculate?
Ano po yun, sir?
Paano to kinalculate?
Hindi yung manual po ba, sir?
Yung formula na gagamitin niyo.
Ano po, sir? In-applyan po namin nung sa Excel po. Yung data analysis po. Yung ano na po siya, yung nag-automatic na po siya.
Anong function?
Yung ano po, sir, yung sa Excel po na yung data analysis po, and then yung sa isang listahan po doon may ano po, correlation po. And then ano po?
Correlation function ng Excel? Correlation, tama ba?
Opo, sir, doon po sa data analysis po.
So yung Corel, ayun yung ginamit niyo. Tama ba?
Yes po.
Okay. Magtatanong tayo, random people. Sige. Tatanong ako random people. Ha, guys? Si Dorothy, are you there? Wait, ilan ba yung Dorothy dito? Isa lang, di ba?
Hi, yes po.
Okay. Ano naiisip mo kapag nakita mo yung correlation between shares na 0.66 sa comments? What does that give you? Anong intuition niya sa'yo?
Mas onti po yung shares kaysa sa comments.
Okay. Sige, okay. Tama ba yun, Renz?
Ang sabi po ni Dorothy ay mas onti po ang share sa comments. Hindi po, sir.
Okay. Sige, tanong pa tayo ng ibang tao. Diane, are you there? Kasama niyo ba si Diane? Hindi. Kasama niyo ba si Diane? Nagrupo mo ba siya? Okay, good.
Hindi.
Okay, anong naiisip mo kapag nakita mo yung 0.66 sa shares at comments?
Ganun din po, mas marami po yung comments compared po sa shares.
Okay. Sige. Another one. Si Mark.
Hello po, sir.
Anong naisip mo pag nakita mo yung 0.66?
I think po, sir, kapag 0.66, tapos, example, sa emoji, parang kapag mas mataas po yung 0.66 kumpara sa 0.35, ibig sabihin parang tumataas po yung shares, bumababa yung emoji reactions.
Okay. Tama ba yun, Renz?
Yung bandang dulo po na sinabi po ni Mark, tama po.
Okay, so ayun ang problema ko, di ba? Nakikita niyo na yung problem ko. Pag tinanong ko yung iba't ibang tao about this, they would have a different look on this. They would have different intuition on this. So I'm asking I'm asking for the most intuitive explanation. Okay? Pag wala kayong nabigay na wala kayong nabigay na formula, ganun, mukhang mahirap to maintindihan ng mga tao. So next time, baka mag-present ulit kayo ng ganito in the later years of your life, sa thesis nyo. Okay. So be careful sa mga ganitong bagay. Okay? Yan. kailangan mabigyan mo ng clear-cut explanation yung mga tao na titingin dyan sa values na yan. Okay, okay. Next ay patingin nung ano yung middle. May mga nakita ko may table na may middle values. Sige. So paano nyo kinalculate yung ano, yung pakitignan nga kung ano yung table na may middle value na 11. May nakita akong ganun. Sa pangalawa na ata yun, after lockdown. 11 na middle value. Yan. Okay, paano kinalculate dito yung middle value?
Sir, ano po, yung pag-arrange po from least to greatest po yung individual, yung kunwari po sa emoji reactions po, yung column po na yan, kapag in-arrange po siya from least to greatest, yung gitnang value po, yun po yung middle value. Sakto din po kasi na 7 po sila. Kaya bali po yung pang fourth na value po, yun po yung middle value po.
Weird. Okay. Okay, weird siya, no? Parang mali yun. Mali ata yun. Pag middle value, di ba median yun? Ibig sabihin, i-add mo lahat ng total number, then divided by 2 para makuha yung middle number. Okay, wala na. Pinansin ko lang. Kasi kung walang sense tong middle value kung hindi talaga siya yung median, tapos i-compare mo siya sa total average. Ang mahirap makita yung pagiging skew ng distribution. Okay. Nagets ba yung Nagets ba yung point ko? Na pag hindi median yung itatabi niyo sa average, nawawalan siya ng sense. Nawawalan siya ng silbi. Okay. Ayan. Russell, nag-raise hand ka?
Sir, I think dun po sa may middle value po ng post namin. Sir, since yun nga po, pag median po, ang kinukuha is yung middle value from, yun nga, arrange po, di ba? Sir, pag in-arrange po natin siya ng yun nga, 2, 5, 11, 11, 27, 39, at 74, yung pinakagitnang value po dun is 11 po talaga, sir. Magkakaroon lang po ng divided by 2 kapag even po yung number of posts. So kunyari pag 6 po, sir, yung dalawang nasa gitna i-divide po by 2. Sir, klain na po.
Okay. Weird. Anong silbi ng middle value dito? Sige, kuwari may data ako dito. Anong ibig sabihin ng 11 with respect to the average? Why was it there? Bakit nandyan yung middle value? Anong additional information ang kaya niyang ibigay?
Hello po, sir.
Hello.
Apo. Bali, we decided na lang din po to include the median value po kasi we want to determine naman din po if yung average po, kung saang bracket po mapupunta yung average, kung doon po ba siya sa values higher than the middle value or the values po included in the lower value or in the lower bracket.
Edi kung ganun pala, dapat nga, i-divide nyo by, i-add nyo lahat ng total post. Tapos divide by 2. Regardless kung even yung number of weeks or not. Kasi dun pa yun pala yung silbi niya. Therefore, dapat kunin mo yung median. Okay, anyway, moving on. Be careful next time sa mga ganyan. Pinansin ko lang sila ngayon. Comparison. Okay. Doon sa graph na may dalawang linya, tas comparison between before and after lockdown. Before and during lockdown pala. Sorry. Okay, iyan ay okay, before yung blue. So yung right end nung blue, kakabit siya dun sa left end nung orange, tama ba? Hindi. Okay, hindi pala. Okay, so ito point out ko rin. Ayan, confusing yung line graph kasi pag bigay ka ng line graph, nagbibigay siya ng intuition na yung data mo is to be read from left to right. Okay. Okay, yun lang. Sige. Okay, very good. Very good pa rin. Galing. Thank you, group 2. Okay, next natin group 4. Okay, you can start sharing your screen. And start anytime.
Okay. Audible po ako.
Yes.
Good day, everyone. Today, Group 4 would like to present their case study that focuses on the activities and behavior of the Facebook group entitled Herbal na Gamot, Home Remedy, Halaman at Health Benefits. We chose to perform an intensive study about this community for varied reasons. First, it consists of members who actively engage with each other. And also, the topic is linked with one of the responsibilities of pharmacists, which is to promote the rational use of medicine. But before proceeding, I would like to explain the use of herbal medicines, which traces back to the ancient times. As a simple definition, an herb is described as a plant with leaves, seeds, or flowers used for flavoring, food, medicine, or perfume. Some examples in our country would include lemongrass or tanglad, and bitter gourd or ampalaya. Herbal medicines has been with us, yes, po, sir, has been with us since the dawn of human civilization, and yet we know far less about its effects than we do about conventional synthetic medicines. Since modern pharmaceutical medicines are observed to be inaccessible since parang mas expensive siya for much of the world's populace, it explains one of the reasons why others would resort to using herbal medicines for its accessibility as well as availability. Next slide, please. To elaborate more on this topic, here are the following key points for discussion. First, we're going to talk about the background of the group, the objectives of our study, our methodologies, discussion of results, conclusion, and recommendation. Next part, please. In this part, you can see the appearance of the Facebook page during the period of conducting the study. When we conducted the study, the members was only about 225,000, but now, as you can see, it is about 231.8 thousand. Next slide, please. Okay, for the background, the Facebook group is a local and public Facebook group that was created last February 18, 2017 by Stella Elizabeth, who is a Filipino caregiver situated in Taiwan. This platform was formed to allow the exchange of information and inquiries about the use of herbal and medicinal plants to either cure or improve one's health condition. For this purpose, uploading of posts about synthetic or branded medicines and other unrelated topics is strictly prohibited. Since the occupation of every individual is not explicitly stated, the accuracy of the suggested treatments for certain health concerns may not be guaranteed. Next slide, please. Okay. The objectives of this study involve the analysis of the members' behaviors in seeking and recommending herbal medicines through the evaluation of the Facebook group's engagements. Next slide, please. Therefore, the collection of data will focus on the average daily posts, number of likes or reactions, and comments, as well as their classifications, if whether they are FDA approved, unproven remedies, or evidence of self-promotion, spam, and irrelevant links. Next slide, please. For the methodology, within our scope and limitation, we gathered, tallied, and analyzed data presented in the FB group from August 1 to October 31 this year, which is a 3-month period. This is so that the information would be updated, especially with the current pandemic situation. Next slide, please. For a clear view on our indicators, they are mainly divided into two. First is the group's activity, which focuses on the statistical treatment of the numerical data, and the classification of posts and comments. Next slide, please. Okay. To evaluate the collected information, we calculated the total, average or mean, and the percentage of the posts, reactions, and comments according to various categories. Next slide, please. Moving on to the discussion of results. Next, please. Okay. Within the given time frame, there were 401 Facebook posts, and as you can see, 337 posts were about questions or people seeking for advice for certain health concerns. And this makes up the highest percentage of 84% of the total, followed by posts of tips or health benefits with 8.48%, and the last 7.48%, which consists of spams, irrelevant contents, and self-promotion. It can be interpreted that the members extensively utilize the platform for their own inquiries about possible treatments or reasons for their health problems. Next slide, please. Okay. In this part, you can see some examples of the last mentioned category, which are the spams, unrelated contents, and self-promotion. Spams can be seen in the first image, showing repeated questions by a member with the same time and dates. The second image displays a suggestion regarding the effectivity of massaging certain pressure points, which is entirely unrelated to herbal medicines. This is also the similar case with the third image. Next slide, please. Computing for the daily posts, the total was divided by 91 days, which comprises of the 3 months, and resulted to an average of 4 posts per day. Next slide, please. Okay. The top post for August is a health advice on the importance of eating malunggay, according to Doc Willie Ong. For September, we have a member seeking an herbal treatment for a critical health condition, which is also the same for October's top post. Next slide, please. Okay. For posts regarding the information or advice shared by the members, 61.8% came from non-verified sources, 32.4% from known personalities like Doc Willie Ong, and 5.9% from actual doctors. This indeed raises a concern, since if most of the suggested treatments came from non-verified sources, the members are left vulnerable to misinformation, thus proves to be the promotion of irrational use of medicine. Next slide, please. Okay, here are some examples of post sources. Next slide, please. For the engagements, there were a total of 14,629 reactions, with the like reaction as the highest and the angry reaction as the lowest. The like and heart reaction shows the agreement or recognition of the members towards the posts. Moreover, the wow reaction shows the bewilderment, surprise, or wonder of the members to new information regarding the benefits of certain herbal medicines or treatments. Finally, the care or sad reactions would pertain to the feelings of empathy or sympathy towards the health concerns of their co-members. Per post, there is an average of 36 reactions. Next, please. Since the group is observed to active engage with the posts of every member, it poses a need to understand the importance of verified and accurate information, not only supported by beliefs, but rather data from actual professionals. And for the comments, we're going to have Miss Alexandra to give us the data.
Okay, so let's now proceed to the discussion of results for the comments. So the total number of comments from August 1 to October 31, 2021 is 26,876. And below are the types or the classification of comments. And there are over 13,349 comments that contains unproven home remedies, meaning these recommended remedies were not scientifically proven or its efficacy is uncertain. Meanwhile, there are also 13,527 comments that are either about self-promotion, spam, or irrelevant links. And self-promotion comments are usually members promoting their own medicinal product or service that are claiming to have the power to cure a particular disease. And spam comments are also present, which are unsolicited comments that have nothing to do with the post. And an example of these are chain messages. And sometimes there are also irrelevant links attached, wherein it brings you to an unrelated site or their own website once you click on it. And meanwhile, there are 0 FDA-approved herbal medicines. And one of the main reasons for that is because of the Facebook group's rule that no one is allowed to recommend branded name or generic products. So next slide, next slide, please. So here are just some other data for the comments. There is an average of 67 comments per post, an average of 295 comments per day, and an average of 8,959 comments each month accumulated from all of the posts in a span of 3 months. And next slide, please. So here are just some examples of comments per post. So ayan, tingnan nyo ng mabuti. Here in the first picture, we can see here that the comment says, Health Wealth Green Barley po, mabilis na makatutulong at magpapagaling ng mga sakit sa inyong katawan. And it is also stated that it is all natural and organic, kaya daw safe. And it is also stated here that the product is US FDA approved and pwede raw itong panggamot sa anumang uri ng sakit. But we found out that this product is just a local brand and it does not exist in the United States. Therefore, the product being US FDA approved is questionable. Meanwhile, in the other photo, we can see someone claiming that this brand called Sanitary Herbal Pad, which is similar to the sanitary napkin that is used by women when they are menstruating. And they're claiming that it can cure daw yung bukol sa breast nung nag-post na babae. And we can also see here in her infographic attached that she included that it can prevent or cure all sorts of diseases, even including prostate cancer. Next slide, please. So syempre gusto namin manigurado kung effective ba tong sanitary herbal pad, and we asked this person if it is effective and if it is FDA approved. And the lady went ahead and answered saying, yes po ma'am. So ayan daw, FDA and pati rin daw ang DOH ang nag-approve on this sanitary herbal pad. So next slide please. But this misinformation has already reached the FDA, and as we can see here in the first photo, that FDA released a statement on their website and warned the public against false, deceptive, and misleading health claims on the said panty liners or sanitary napkins. And the same thing here in the second photo, FDA also warned the public on unregistered green barley powder juice drink. So next slide, please. So for our observations, First, we observe that people can easily join the group because the group is public. So this means that anyone can view and access the information being posted. We also observe that Filipino is the main language used in communicating and interacting between the members of the Facebook group. And there is also a rule announced by the creator of the group that no one is allowed to post or recommend synthetic or branded drugs, which may also be the reason why there are no FDA approved drugs in the comment section. So another rule in the Facebook group is selling or advertising of products are supposedly not allowed. But as we can see in the data presented earlier, that there were still a lot of self-promotional, spam, and irrelevant links being shared. And lastly, we observed that some comments are suggesting that they have the cure for their particular illness and that all they have to do is to private message the commenter, but this act can possibly result in the members getting scammed. So next slide, please. So let's now proceed to the conclusion and recommendation of our case study. So for our conclusion, we conclude that the members' posts have varying degree of concerns, meaning that the members of the Facebook group who raise their health concerns have varying health concerns that ranges from mild to severe cases. Next is the accuracy of suggested treatments is not guaranteed since the occupation of every individual is not explicitly stated. So therefore, the accuracy of the suggested treatments for certain health concerns may not be guaranteed. So next is due to the large population of the Facebook group with over 225,000 members, it is difficult to monitor and supervise the comment section. And lastly, we conclude that there were no FDA-approved herbal medicines. So next slide. So for the recommendation of our case study, we have decided to divide it into two parts. First, for the recommendation for the members of the Facebook group, they should be aware that most of the suggested treatments are based on personal experience, meaning that the treatments that work for others does not necessarily mean that the treatment will work for them. So the next recommendation is that commenters should provide verified links to support their suggested treatments and hindi yung kung ano-anong links lang yung ina-attach. And they should also consult and get advice from their local health professionals instead of adhering to the treatments commented and shared on this Facebook group. Then for the recommendation for the admins and moderators, first, posts and comments should be regulated by a health professional because they are equipped with the right knowledge and skills to identify scientifically based and effective treatments. And lastly, we recommend that the Facebook group should have registered pharmacists to serve as educators on the proper use of herbal medicines because pharmacists can safely monitor and counsel patients when it comes to drug interactions, adverse drug effects, and take precautions of these herbal medicines being recommended and circulated in this Facebook group. So next slide. So yeah, so that's it for our report. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something from our case study on the herbal medicine Facebook group. So thank you.
Galing, galing, galing. Guys, pag may bukol kayo sa dibdib nyo, no? Pamamogram kayo. Huwag kayong mag-ano, sanitary pads na pinagsasabi niya. Scary. Okay, paki-share ulit, sorry. May mga tanong ako. Guys, mag-raise hand kayo sa ibang mga students, no? Raise hand kayo kung may tanong kayo. Okay, punta tayo sa engagements. Okay. Sayang to, no? Dapat ginawa nyo na lang din bar graph. O di kaya yung pie chart. Okay. Ano ko lang. Kasi pag may ganyang ka line, it tells the audience na tignan mo siya from left to right. Pero wala namang relation yung left to right data nyo. Okay. Next, sa comments. Patingin ako ng comments. Included ba sa spam yung mga nagtatag ng mga kakilala nila? O walang ganun? O totally not recorded as data? Guys, nakamute kayo. Baka nagsasalita kayo.
Yes daw po, kasama daw po yung mga tinatag.
Okay. And then next, may nakita akong yung ang tawag dito, yung usual comments are in Filipino. Ay, punta sa slide na yun. Sa dulo na yun. Observations, I think. Ayan. Filipino is the main language used in communication. Filipino, ibig sabihin, may Bisaya, may Ilocano, o Tagalog.
Ano po, mainly po Tagalog. Pero,
So, magkaiba kasi yung Filipino and Tagalog, no? Language ng Tagalog, okay? Kasi kung ito yung statement mo, ang ibig mong sabihin, more of, bali, onti lang yung nagko-comment in English. Okay. Another foreign language. So, kung ayun yung point mo, okay. Pero kung ang point mo is puro Tagalog, dapat Tagalog na lang sana yung nakalagay dito.
ano po, bali po wala pong nag-i-English sa Facebook group, kaya po nalagay po namin sa observation na Filipino po yung main language po.
Okay. Okay, yun lang. May questions ba galing sa ibang group? Okay, kung wala, proceed na tayo sa group 1. Okay, congrats group 4. Galing. Okay, you can now start group 1. Share screen. Kung sino man. Ooh, Vivico.
Sir.
Kita na. You can now start.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are Group 1, and today we will be presenting our case study, which is entitled Vico Soto's Twitter Activity and His Public Image and Ratings, a Correlational Analysis. So let's see what's happening in the room right now. Before we begin, let me introduce the verified Twitter users who will be hosting this discussion today. First, we have Roland Domingo, yours truly, Phoebe Mabanta. Next is Diane Mendoza, Julio Anida, and last but not least, Leira Vinarao. So as you can see, we have a short bio for each of the hosts, but I will now be giving the floor to Roland to formally introduce our discussion.
Hi. So before we begin, we'd like to share a bit of our research on who Vico Soto is and why we chose him for our study in the first place. So Vico Soto is the current mayor of Pasig City. He was voted into position in June of 2019, and since his inauguration has been receiving generally positive reviews from citizens both within his precinct and beyond. Mayor Vico Soto is particularly popular amongst millennials and Gen Z citizens, and with both these generations sharing a heavily digitized population, our group has strong reason to believe that the positive reception of Mayor Soto may have some form of correlation to his locally unique, strong social media presence. So in our study, we will be focusing particularly on Mayor Soto's inclination to use the major social media outlet, which is Twitter, and Twitter functions by users posting quick, short posts called tweets, which other users can then interact with by liking, reposting, or replying to. On his Twitter platform with the handle @VicoSoto, as you can see on the image, Mayor Soto is well known to do timely updates on citywide projects and current events, and he also engages in light humor, such as through memes and direct replies to entertain his followers. So for this study, our objectives of the study include evaluating Vico Soto's Twitter account activity and online community engagement with Pasigueños, and also supporters outside of Pasig City, starting from October 1, 2021 until November 30, 2021. This includes the delivery of relevant information to citizens such as government projects, updates on his work and COVID-19 statistics, and promotions of political views and or opinions. And secondly, we also aim to describe the reception, such as the transactions and reactions and more of these different factors, and the use of his social media presence through quantitative analysis and surveys based on firsthand experience, by observing his active followers that are from Pasig City. So this aims to shed light on how his citizens perceive him as a mayor and how social media impacts this image and information dissemination. So I'll be passing the mic to Diane for our methodology.
So to reach such objectives, we have agreed upon a series of indicators and factors that we would consider para malaman kung gaano ba ka-effective or ka-efficient yung mode of delivery or content na kino-communicate ni Mayor Vico to his subjects. So we observed three main determinants: the actual page activity of Mayor Vico found at handle @VicoSoto, the corresponding relative impact that the page receives from the mass, and lastly, how it affects the reception regarding information dissemination. So, tignan natin siya isa-isa. So, page activity scopes the content of the page itself at VicoSoto, of which we have decided to obtain the average weekly posts. So, yung mga post mismo, as well as the average topics, that's collected categorically, like yung posts updates ba siya on COVID or updates on government projects or other related matters. Nextly, relative impact aims to gauge how much the public mass consider or act toward the posts by the total engagements the post receives. So ang kinoconsider naman here are the likes, replies, retweets, quote retweets, and how the engagement rises or lowers depende sa topic na pinoportray niya. For instance, which topics receive higher engagement or more favorable responses from the mass. Last but not least, we evaluated the reception via conducting a survey among Pasigueños regarding the mode of delivery and information dissemination done by VicoSoto in order to determine its effectiveness and outcome. This would give an overall post-reception ratio that should lean toward positive versus the negative. So for the page activity, Mayor Vico's Twitter at VicoSoto has garnered a lot of attention from the mass, averaging with at least 8,000 interactions across tweets from different dates. This number steadily grows as time goes by, lalo na very notable yung pagtaas niya during election season. For instance, here in my ongoing draft, shinare ko na he got about 99,000 likes and 12,000 quote and direct retweets regarding his filing of COC or Certificate of Candidacy. We can also note that his 2021 election reminders also received a lot of attention. So tumataas din yung page activity ni Mayor Vico, especially whenever he posted about important COVID updates like his local vaccination report na may 50,000 interactions and the status of Pasig face-to-face simulation, which then had about 29,000 interactions. So for the average weekly posts, we recorded a sample size of 78 tweets in the time span of October to November, most of which ay naka-format into Twitter threads. Similarly, there was an average post of 7.8 tweets per week over the span of 10 weeks. As for the topics, of the 78 tweets we observed, 27 doon ay regarding government updates like elections, revised protocols, and vaccination status, and 36 were project updates of the LGU and ongoing local projects in its jurisdiction. 14 naman ay for community news like important community updates, local crimes, suspects, and other updates related to this. And lastly, a single personal update which had been about a joke on his birthday no October 29, as seen right here. So, ayan, nag-post siya ng video. So that's it. Tune to Lyra's live space to know more about how these tweets impact the mass.
Yan. So welcome to our live space, guys. Sana all, di ba, nakakapunta ng space. Pero kidding aside, now you're tuning in to the relative impact of Mayor Vico's tweets to the public. And here naman, you will see an overview on how many people can his tweets reach. First, let's talk about muna dun sa first table dyan. Sorry, ay, kape. Let's talk about the total engagements of his past 78 tweets. Dito, overall, Vico's tweets from October 1 to November 30, 2021 had almost 350,000 likes with an average of 6,850 likes per tweet. Tapos may 32,393 tweets with an average of 426 retweets per post. O di ba ang famous? Tapos, and 20,396 replies and quote retweets with an average of 131 comment per tweet for a total of 402,159 engagements. Dito naman makikita nyo na 86.87% ng engagements na yun or interactions were likes. 8.05% were retweets, and 5.07 naman yung replies and quote retweets. And as you can also observe, we decided to place quote retweets and replies in one category. Since nag-represent lang naman yun ang number of comments that Vico's tweets had, di ba yun naman yung purpose ng quote retweets and reply para makapag-comment yung mga citizens natin. So let's move on to dun sa second naman nating table. Comparison of engagements between each topic. Oh, let's go. From October 1 to November 30, si Vico, nagkaroon siya ng 78 tweets. Di ba? Binilang namin. Oh. We decided to exclude his retweets since we are unable to attribute the engagements of those tweets specifically to his Twitter account naman. And then we divided his tweets into 4 categories, depending syempre kung anong type of post yon. Pwedeng government update ay yung number 1, number 2, community update, number 3, project update, and yung last syempre, personal update, kaya nga 4 eh. Tapos, yung government updates are those that are mainly concerned with policies, yung COVID-19, handling, and the likes. Samantalang yung mga community update naman, ito yung mga tweets that directly address yung Pasig community, like yung may fire incident report sa kanila, yung mga transportation notices. Tapos, yung doon naman sa project updates, ito na yung progress ng mga LGU projects nila for transparency purposes na rin para may ma-document na nagsiserve as evidence na talagang hands-on talaga si Mayor Vico sa mga projects niya. And lastly, yung personal update na that has nothing to do naman with his position as a mayor. So out of the 78 tweets, 27 doon yung government updates na may total na almost 275,000 engagements and an average of 10,171.33 engagements per tweet. 14 doon yung community update na may almost total of 50,000 engagements and an average of 3,533.29. Sige, renound off ko na lang. Tapos, yung next naman nun is project update na may 36 na tweets. It has a total of 75,073 engagements in a mean of 2,085.36 engagements. And yung nag-iisa na personal update, yung katulad ng sinabi ni Dayan kanina na for birthday lang naman, naka-garner naman yun ng total na 2,994 engagements and an average of 2,994, obviously, kasi isa lang naman. So, as you can see, makikita nyo dito na 36, di ba, tweets lang yung about sa project. Pero sobrang it had a significantly lower number na average engagements as just juxtaposed with these 27 government updates. 10,000 yung sa government updates yung mean, tapos dun sa project update, 2,000 lang, di ba? A lot more people have been engaging with updates in tweets when it's about the government. Tapos, makikita nyo din kung ano yung differences nila na halos magkasunod yung community update, project update, personal update, pero masyadong malayo dun sa may mean pagdating sa government update. That's the end of our live space. Sana naman nabuhayan ko at nalaman nyo kung paano ba, ano nang mangyayari dun sa last 78 tweets ni Mayor Vico, di ba? But to know more about Vico's Twitter account reception, let's look at Phoebe's tweet.
Ayun, so sana all may energy. So, we will now be looking at the reception of his Twitter account. As stated earlier, he had a total of 78 tweets in the months of October and November. From these tweets, we gave special attention to the comments of Twitter users who follow Vico and actively reply and quote tweet his tweets. So out of that 20,396 replies and quote tweets, only 14 of them were negative about his use of Twitter as one of the platforms to interact with the people he serves. And the remaining majority of the 20,000 comments range from positive to extremely positive. So that's actually a really good ratio. In these positive comments, as you can see, we included the ones that have nothing to do with his tweets about the community or government. Pwede sabihin kasi sometimes may mga tao, like mga 1 or 2 people na nagko-comment about crush ko si Vico, ganun-ganun. Pero around 1 or 2 comments na lang naman yung present. So from the replies in Vico's tweets, we noticed that aside from praising Vico, people were also asking questions, raising concerns, and suggesting projects. So we considered them as positive comments because that implies that people perceive Vico's Twitter account as an avenue to communicate with their mayor. Hence, we can infer that they view Vico as a mayor whom they can easily reach out to. On the other hand, looking at these negative comments right here, they mostly consist of ad hominem, political color association, and expression of disappointment over Vico's decisions in politics. So far, wala namang comments na nagbabash about his governance directly, but may mga nanghahamon na patunayan niya, mayroon ding binibigyan ng mali siya yung pag-update niya sa mga tao sa Twitter, at hindi rin maiiwasan yung mga taong nag-e-express ng disappointment over the running mate he chose. So, as well as his previous tweet in the year 2016 about history revisionism and the Marcoses. Also, these negative tweets were under government updates and project updates in particular. So, along with the actual monitoring of Vico's Twitter account, our group felt it would help us further understand the impact of this if we were to gather information from his followers directly. So we conducted a short survey entitled Pasigueños on the Information Dissemination of Mayor Vico Soto, and we were able to gather 19 responses. So before the questions on Vico's account, we took the time to gather information on the respondents' background. So as seen in the data on screen, a majority of the respondents resided in Barangay Pinagbuhatan, with Barangay Rosario and Capitolio coming in at a tie for second. So with that being said, over 57% of these residents have been living in Pasig for 10 or more years. This is quite relevant as we will be able to see how they compare the source of information for Pasigueños over the years. Next, we have the age group. Of course, we are dealing with social media, and it is important that we look at the age populations that are active on this platform. So almost 75% of the respondents are Generation Z, which we divided into older and younger Gen Z, with the older having the bigger chunk. So the oldest generation included here is Generation X, and no respondents above this generation participated in the survey. On to the actual questions, we asked them to choose which platform or source of media they get their news from the most before and after Vico's election in 2019. In the before graph, we can see that many chose Facebook as their source of news, and it quickly switched to Twitter after his election. So this could be due to the fact that Vico really enforced the use of Twitter as his main update platform for either the community or the government itself. But we should also consider that, yun nga, as mentioned before, is the demographic Gen Z made up most of the population, and this shift may have been a result of that and their general preference for Twitter over Facebook. We then asked to what extent they agreed that Twitter was a more efficient source compared to other platforms, and almost 48% rated it a perfect score. Take note that for the following graphs, we have used a rating system of 1 to 5, with 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest. So there were 2 respondents who disagreed with this, making the average 4.11 out of 5, which is 82.2%. Next, we asked the respondents to rate Vico's Twitter using 4 different factors, being efficiency, transparency, accessibility, and effectiveness. Efficiency was rated with an average of 4.26 over 5, transparency at 4.21, accessibility at 4.16, and finally effectiveness at 4.37. So we got a total average of all of these factors, which resulted in a 4.25 over 5, which is 85%, and is a very good rating and gives us a positive reception rate ratio. It goes to show that from the sample size, many very much agree that Vico's use of Twitter and his methods of updating the public on government and community concerns are effective. So overall, the results match up with the engagements and reception we have gathered from the actual Twitter account and posts of Vico. So I will now be passing you guys over to Julia for our final thoughts.
What's up, Maranap? Thanks for having me. So to conclude our study, I just want to say na looking at the world in these modern times, we can never deny that technology and social media are 2 very powerful means in disseminating and gathering information. Of course, with emphasis on social media. Karamihan kasi sa mga tao ngayon, palaging nag-scroll sa social media nila. Kasi it's very convenient in acquiring information. Tapos parang takot na tayo na hindi maging up-to-date sa mga ganap. Kaya malawak talaga ang reach ng social media. And of course, people learned how to utilize that, especially politicians. because then again, they have to stay relevant. Of course, to reach out to their constituents or share information and updates for transparency na rin. That is why in this study, we have evaluated the social media engagement of one of the most heard about politicians, which is Mayor Vico Soto, specifically on Twitter, as well as how people perceive him as a mayor through his timely updates and tweets. Kung tambay kayo sa Twitter, you'll know talaga na may hype kay Vico Soto as a mayor. Kaya ayun, we decided na alamin kung effective ang paggamit ng Twitter sa pakikipag-interact sa mga nasasakupan niya. And after 61 days of gathering data from his Twitter activity, thousands of engagements between him and the public, both Pasigueños and non-Pasigueños, were made. And this reflects how a massive amount of people he can reach with just a simple tweet. And these engagements were then evaluated by finding the total number of likes, retweets, quote retweets, replies, and their means respectively on topics such as ayun nga, government updates, project updates, community news, and personal updates. And his tweets also have garnered a lot of reactions from the public, with majority of them stating their satisfaction and how efficient and transparent Mayor Vico is as a leader. Kung babasahin niyo yung reply sa tweets ni Vico, karamihan doon, sana all, great examples of Vico as a leader. That is what a true leader is. May mga gusto pa ngang magpaampon sa Pasig eh. However, of course, there are also a few that stated their disapproval of some of Vico's perception in politics, like what was shown earlier. But then again, the ratio of positive perception to negative is leaning more towards the positive side. So that tells us something. And of course, to determine if Twitter is really an effective and efficient platform in sharing information, we've also conducted a survey to ask Pasigueños about their first-hand experience on this. And with the total or overall results showing a rate of 85% approval on using Twitter as a medium of disseminating information, this only reflects that people have also acknowledged the power of social media as a means of transparency in the government, and have agreed that it is indeed effective for Mayor Vico to share updates about his governance, about his projects on Twitter, since they are able to see evidences of his efforts, and they appreciate the fact that Vico takes initiative in updating the public about relevant government activities. And that's all from us. Thank you so much for listening.
Ang galing. Dami nilang energy, guys, no? Grabe, finals na. Tapos, dami niyo pang energy. I-back lang natin ng onting slide dun sa engagement na yung may mga number o yung tables ng numbers. Yan. Okay, pag may mga ganyang values, yung mga decimal point, i-round up, round down nyo sila. Dahil hindi naman wala namang kalahating engagement, di ba? So, isang, siya, i-round up, round down nyo sila. Okay? Ayun lang. Tapos, ano pa ba? Yung survey ay ilang tao ulit? Sorry.
19 po, sir.
Okay, 19. Ganda sana kung marami pang, mas marami pang survey. Okay, may tanong pa ba yung iba? Okay, very good. Send ko kaya kay Biko to, no? Pwede ko send kay Biko to, malalaman nyo to. Yan. Gusto nyo ba makilala, guys? Ganun pala. Yes. Okay. Anyway, okay, good job, guys. Good job sa tatlong unang group na nag-present. Tuloy tayo next meeting, Monday. Sir, Pasigueño po ako. Never ko siya na-meet. Grabe. Ayan, sige. Tingnan natin kung send natin kay Vico. Okay, good job, guys. Thank you. Nag-extend na tayo sa time. Okay. Dismiss na tayo. Galing. Congrats. Sana makapasok kayo lahat sa Monday. Pero kung hindi, okay lang dahil may bagyo and etc. Ang daming ganap sa mga buhay natin. Kung di kaya, okay lang. Pero ayun, I invite everyone to go sa synchronous session natin next meeting para din mapag-closing remarks ako. Wow, last day na natin sa Monday. Okay, again, thank you. Oh, speech. Yes. Okay, thank you. Bye, everyone.